You are now listening to
the Primal Armor Podcast.
This episode is sponsored by Executive Fit LLC. They build custom deadlift platforms, custom barbell storage pieces, and make indoor and outdoor signage for your home or corporate gym. Every platform that pairs with a rack is customized to that specific rack, so everything fits nice and clean. And they ship nationwide. Each platform has a logo applied in a way that makes it impossible to peel up from wear and tear. They even make custom nameplates for your squat rack. Visit executivefitllc.com to request a quote and see what's available on their store. That's executivefitllc.com to upgrade your deadlift game today. Welcome back to episode 58 of the Primal Armor Podcast. We've been working on getting some new equipment at the fire station that I work at. And one of the main pieces that we're looking at getting is some lifting belts for the guys. There are Velcro belts and leather belts, and then those can even be categorized into roller belts and lever belts. But before you decide on buying a belt for yourself, you need to understand why people wear belts for lifting in the first place. So many people believe it's just to help keep your back straight when you squat or deadlift. And that's one of the worst things you could ever think, because that just means that you're having terrible lifting form and you're letting your back round like that. You have to fix that by going lighter and getting stronger with better form. And a piece of leather or a piece of Velcro isn't going to help keep your back straight. Your core is one of the weakest sets of muscles in your entire body. It's not meant to lift the weight for you. It's meant to help you keep your body to brace for that movement. And you have to have a belt to take advantage of that. So when you put on a belt, it's not to straighten your back. It's so you can keep a deep belly breath in and brace your core against that belt to keep it strong and to keep it in place throughout the entire lift. It's just an aid to help your core muscles use the musculature that they have and brace with them. You can technically do this without a belt, but most people don't know how to properly belly breathe. So if you wear a belt, that's a good way to practice and get better at it, because you can breathe in until you're pressing hard against that belt with your belly. If you're taking in a deep breath and you don't feel that belt get tighter, that just means you're expanding your chest too much and you're taking too much of a chest type breath. And you need to take that breath into your belly to fully utilize that belt. And it's for exercises that actually need extra core bracing, like squats when you're trying to keep your chest upright, and your core is a main component in that. And the same goes with deadlifts. You need to keep your chest upright in a good deadlift. If your core loses stability, your core doesn't stay tight and your back starts to round. It's not the belt itself that's keeping your back straight. It's your ability to properly belly breathe against that belt so those muscles brace and are at their strongest. But like I said, you don't need a belt to do that. It just helps practice that type of breathing in case you've never done it before. And you can get better at that over time by practicing and lifting over the years. But this is a way that right when you first start off, you can get better at bracing your core on your own. But it's good for things like squats, deadlifts, the overhead jerk in an Olympic lifting movement. And that's because your body is trying to stay in its midline, and your extensors in your core need that to stay strong and execute the lift. Belts help with that. But what belts don't help with is things like bicep curls. I've seen way too many people wearing belts for things like bicep curls and seated rows. And not only does that not do a damn thing for you, it just makes you look so stupid in the gym. When do you use your core muscles for an isolated bicep curl? Absolutely never. And that's why you don't need a belt for those things. And if you do, you're doing bicep curls absolutely wrong. If you're using your back to do bicep curls, then you need to lower the weight and check your ego. Because bicep curls are an isolated single muscle exercise, and it doesn't need your core to be engaged for it. And the same goes for seated rows. Those are to isolate your arms and your upper back. And that's why you're seated, so you don't compensate with your legs. You don't engage your core for a seated row in that position, and that's why you don't need a belt for it. And again, if you think you do, just lower the weight and check your ego, because that's not how you're supposed to be doing the exercise, and it's not how it's supposed to be performed, and you're not using the proper muscles. So you're just basically defeating the purpose of why you're doing that exercise. You shouldn't be buying a belt unless you truly know how to use it. Otherwise, it's just a waste of money. It's just like buying something that you're never going to use. It's throwing your money down the drain. Because if you don't know how to properly use it, it's essentially useless. because it's not keeping your back straight. It's bracing those core muscles. So now that you know how to use one, or at least you understand how to use one, we can look at different types of belts. I'm not really a big fan of those fabric Velcro belts because they still give a little bit of flex in that fabric and expand when you belly breathe. And it's not much, but it's still just a little bit, so you aren't getting the full effect of them. And that makes it harder to learn to belly breathe for someone who's just first starting out because you get that little bit of flex in there. And it's also pretty easy for Velcro to get all gross and gunked up over time. And then it doesn't work. It doesn't actually connect like it's supposed to. So then you have the chance of your belt blowing out, and then you have potential of injury there. Velcro belts are usually cheaper for a reason. They don't give the same quality as a nice leather belt. But this is me just nitpicking for the sake of nitpicking. They can still work, especially for people who aren't lifting competitively or at extreme weights. I'm just trying to give you guys all the info that I can on belts. And in my own opinion, I'm just not a big fan of Velcro belts for these reasons. And this is coming down to me playing devil's advocate against them, though, because they can work, but when paired against a leather belt, they just can't compete. And what you really need is a nice quality leather lifting belt. And they're a little bit pricey, but they're worth the price. And that's why I said Velcro belts are usually cheaper for a reason. They just don't have that same quality. And if you're looking for the best quality in a leather belt out there, make sure you go check out my guy Christopher over at BeltFedStrength. They're about to take the weightlifting belt market by storm. He and his wife are creating some custom leather belts that you literally can't find the quality of anywhere else. They sit there for hours and hours and hours, carving your belt, painting your belt, dyeing your belt, and doing every single thing to your custom order. You can get some lifting belts from Rogue or other fitness websites like that, but they're just not the same. Like I was saying, they make each belt from scratch, and you get to see the entire process of it, from cutting the leather, designing your logo into it, painting it or dyeing them, customizing it by choosing your own thickness, waist size, hardware, you name it. They're here to help, and they get you the best belt that you can for your needs. And if you don't even have a logo or a design in mind, they're also here to help you and work with you on that. But here's the thing. The thing that really made me realize that these guys are some of the most downright and the most genuine people in the entire world. If you go to their website, they have a section that's called Free Belts. Christopher shares about how he struggled with life in the past and how fitness has changed that for him. But how some people just don't have access to good equipment and they just can't afford it. They offer those who truly can't afford it a free belt so they can hopefully have the same life-changing experience that he had. And the same goes for regular belts that people use in job interviews. He just wants to make a difference in someone else's life, and he hopes that they can one day return the favor to someone else. And I read that, and that moved me because that's stuff that I like to do with Primal Armor. So I want you guys to go check him out and see the work that he does because it's amazing. And these aren't big corporations that are just getting us for our money. These are two people, a husband and wife that created the business to do what they love and support their own family. And they have amazing work, and not enough people see that. So I just want to get the word out there for them that people need to get looking at these belts and get ordering them because there's nothing out there like them. So I really want you guys to go check him out and see the work that he does because this is someone that you need to go and support. There's not many people like that left in the world. And I want you guys to pay it forward to him because he does that for others. So I want us to do that for him and to check him out because he's just one of the few that's left. And so now that you know how to use a belt and where to get your belt, there's no more excuses. Get on BeltFedStrength.com, get yourself a cool new custom belt, get in the weight room, and start getting some new PRs. Before we end today's episode, I'd like to give a quick shout out to Anchor Podcasts. They distribute this podcast, you guys, in just about any platform you may try to find us on, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many, many more. All the recording, editing, and final touches are also done through Anchor, which makes getting the Primal Armor podcast out to you guys very quick, easy, and mobile. You guys can also submit questions or voice messages that I can add to our next episode. Go download the Anchor.fm app today to check out what it's all about. I just want to thank you for listening to today's podcast, and we'll see you back here again next week.